Okay, so we're still simplifying radicals. We're just going to throw in some variables and exponents. So take a look here. So if we're given the square root of a to the m power, if m is a multiple of 2, all we're going to do is we're going to use the rule. I'm going to take m and I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay, I'm going to take m divided by 2, and that's going to be my exponent that gets pulled out. Now, if m is not a multiple of 2, go ahead and break it apart, kind of like what we did with the other lesson when we didn't have the perfect square. Okay, so let's take a look here at some examples. We're going to have y squared. So all I'm going to do is take this exponent, I'm going to divide it by 2, which is going to give me a 1. So the square root of something squared, is just going to be y. Okay, cha-ching. That's it. Okay, so anytime you see a squared, taking the square root, squared, square root. See the. Let's take a look here at a second example. So it has the square root of 16 times the square root of 12. I'm going to go ahead and split it up like this. Not square root of 12, sorry, y to the 12. So the square root of 16 is 4, and then the square root of y to the 12, remember I'm going to take this exponent and I'm going to divide it by 2. That's going to give me 6. That's going to give me y to the 6th power. Okay, so this would be your answer, 4y to the 6th power. You don't really even need that multiplication sign, but you can have it there. So now let's look, what does that look like as far as a odd number in the exponent? So we have m to the 5th power, trying to find the square root of that. So if I were to take 5 and divide it by 2, I would get 2.5. So I'm not going to say this is m raised to the 2.5 power. That does not make sense. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to split this up. And this is going to be the square root of m to the 4th times square root of m to the 1st. So I'm trying to find the largest power there. So really I'm just going to take 1 away. So 5 minus 1, that's how I got 4 there. All right. So then I'm going to have m to the 2nd power, because 4 divided by 2 gives me 2, and then square root of m. So I just leave that there. So I have that m inside. You're always going to have, probably your largest power is going to be a 1 that's going to be inside the radical. Okay, you're not going to have, you're not going to have a power of 3 or 5 or anything like that stays inside inside the radical sign. So we have 45a to the 15th. So I'm going to take 45. I'm trying to think of a perfect square that goes into 45. And I can't think of one. But this is going to be the square root of 45 times the square root of a to the 14th times the square root of a. Okay? So, because remember when I multiply, I'm adding exponents. So that's why I can just take 1 away and add the other one there. So I can't find a perfect square for 45. There's not one that goes into it. I can't simplify there. But a to the 14th, I can divide that by 2. That's going to give me a to the 7th. Okay, remember 14 divided by 2 gives me a to the 7th. Then I'm going to have the radical sign. I'm going to have 45a. So both of those were split between here and here, but because they both have to stay underneath the radical, just like I split them up, I can put them right back together. Okay, when you're multiplying or dividing. Okay, when you're multiplying or dividing. And that's how I get this radicand of 45a. So a to the 7th, square root of 45a. I'll show you how you're going to put it in your skill check here in just a little bit at the end of these examples. So I'm still using the same rule that I'm going to take m, I'm going to divide it by 2. I'm going to take the power, if it's not a multiple of 2, so it's not even. If it's an odd number, I'm going to subtract 1 from it. I'm going to have a, and then I'm going to have a to the m minus 1 makes it even. So I have the square root of 63. I'm trying to think my perfect squares. Oh yeah, 9. 9 is a perfect square that goes into 63. So I'm going to have to do kind of like what I learned last lesson and apply it to this lesson. I'm just going to add in the exponent piece here. So I have 63 that can be written as a square root of 9 times the square root of 7. And then I have square root of 6, x to the 6, excuse me. And so now I can go ahead and take all these together. So this square root of 9 becomes 3, and the square root of x to the 6 becomes x to the 3rd. Remember, I'm dividing by 2. Then I have the square root of 7, and then that is going to be my simplified form. So now I have a number out front I'm multiplying by. Okay, so I have like basically a coefficient. And so I'm going to have 8 times the square root of 4 times the square root of x times the square root of y to the 8th power. Okay, so when you read this, sometimes, and even I do it, I see that 4xy to the 8th, I think x and y go together with that 8. It doesn't. That 8 only applies to the y. Okay, so pay close attention to that. So I have 8 times 2, square root of 4 is 2. Then I have the square root of x. I'm going to leave that, wait for just for a second. Okay, I'm going to hold on to that, hold. And then I'm going to take y to the 8th. I'm going to take the square root of that. Remember, I'm just going to divide by 2. So that time, these, with the exponents, you get divided by 2, not the coefficients. So then I have y to the 4th times the square root of x. So I still have it. Okay, came down, but I just went ahead and wrote all my coefficient out there in front. 8 times 2 becomes 16, so I have 16 y to the 4th square root x. Okay, this is my simplified form. All right, so now I have negative 3 times the square root of 144 times the square root of x to the 12th times the square root of y to the 9th. So I can go ahead and find my perfect squares. So negative 3 times 12, because 144, the square root of 144 is 12. And then I'm going to take my exponent for my even one, and I'm going to write that as x to the 6th. And then I'm going to, I did not do this. I did not split this up. So I'm going to have times y to the 8th times the square root of y. So the square root of y to the 8th times the square root of y, because I have to remember that 9 is not an even number, so I can't take that there. So I have negative 3. I'm going to go ahead and combine these. This makes negative 36 x to the 6th. Y to the 8th, the square root is going to be y to the 4th, then the square root of y. So that's what we would have there. Still have a radical there. So now I have 10, and I don't have a coefficient underneath, so that's going to make it a little bit easier. And I have x to the 15th times y. So remember that exponent there is just going to be 1. So I have 10. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as x to the 14th times the square root of x, and then times the square root of y. So here I'm going to divide my exponent by 2, so that gives me 7. So 10x to the 7th square root x y. So just like I split them up, remember, I can split them up and put them back together multiplying wise here. And I keep saying that because we're going to get into adding and subtracting, and you can't do that with adding and subtracting, just like with exponents. So exponents and square roots and radicals, they kind of go hand in hand, and they really do. So those exponent rules that we learned a long time ago still kind of stay the same here. All right, so real quick on your skill check. So all of these are open-ended questions again. So I'm going to allow you to go in and see what you're missing. So if I were to write example number 8 into my skill check, okay. So I have a blank check, basically square root, and then another blank. So I'm going to have my coefficient is going to be out front. So I have 10x rooftop 7. Okay, because my x to 7. So that's my first blank. That is what goes here. So that little rooftop is shift 6. Okay, so just like you would write that normally, like if you were plugging it into scientific calculator or anything like that, you're just gonna type it in there. So you're actually gonna write that character in there. And then my second blank is going to be right here, and I'm just going to have y. You don't do rooftop 1. If it's an exponent of 1, just leave it as just the regular variable. Okay, so the first blank would be 10x rooftop 7, and then y. So if you had multiple exponents out in front, like on example number 7, then if I were to write this into my skill check, so if like number 7 were on my skill check and I were to write this in there, then my first answer would be negative, my first blank would be negative 36, x rooftop 6, y rooftop 4. And I don't have any spaces in there. They're all squished together. And the second answer would be just y again. Well, there you go. Ooh, I messed up on that one. On number 10, it should have been xy underneath the square root. So just now when I showed you y, that should have been an xy for number 10 right here. I messed up on that one. But I just want to make sure you understand with the little rooftop. And I went ahead and put that in the like kind of the directions, and I told you to use that rooftop for the exponents when you need to, but don't use it if you don't need to. So this is the simplifying radicals with the variables. Again, contact me if you have questions. Attend the Schoology conference or our Google Meet, and I will talk to you later. Bye.